Now, the candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, has been declared the winner of the Saturday, November 8, 2025 Anambra State governorship election by the returning officer of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Edoba Omoregi. Soludo, who polled a total of 422,664 votes, defeated his closest rival, that's the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Nicholas Ukachukwu, who scored 99,445 votes, while the candidate of the Young Progressives Party, Sir Paul Chukwuma, came third with 37,753 votes. According to INEC, a total of 16 candidates from various political parties participated in the election. Reacting to the outcome of the election, the Lagos State chapter of the All Progressives Congress has advised Peter Obi, the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, to have a rethink about his 2027 presidential ambition. Well, in other news now, with just 5 days until the landmark People's Democratic Party, PDP, National Elective Convention on November 15th to 16th, 2025, the party is firing on all cylinders and ready to elect a dynamic new National Working Committee and solidify its unbreakable unity as Nigeria's premier opposition force, gearing up for a triumphant return in 2027, is their hope. Well, the historic #Ibadan 2025 gathering, set to unfold at the fully refurbished Lekon Salami Stadium in Adamasingba, Ibadan, will draw over 3,000 delegates from Nigeria's 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Stakeholders have said that this convention will not only install a refreshed NWC, but also heal divides, amplify diverse voices, and chart a roadmap to victory in 2027. Now, the recent recognition by the Independent National Electoral Commission upholding Umar Iliya Damagum as the constitutionally recognized national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, dismissing claims by Abdul Rahman Mohammed, a loyalist of the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike, to the national chairmanship position, seems to have set the tone for the coming convention. Well, to unpack all these and more, joining us on the Political Brief to discuss these stories is Arise Director of News and Politics Editor, Sumner Sambo. Sumner, good morning and welcome to a brand new week on The Morning Show.
Yeah, good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Ayo, and good morning, Rufai.
Good morning, Sumner.
I said that thou among women.
He sure is. He sure is. Sumner, let's get straight into it. I think the right place to begin is in Anambra State and all the issues pertaining to it. I want to touch, because we've analyzed so many things today, but let's touch on that Peter Obi part of this entire equation. Of course, we know that the last time a governorship election was held in Anambra State was before what we knew as the Peter Obi obedient phenomenon that came to the limelight in 2023. This was also, to many people, a litmus test of the type of influence and the hold that Peter Obi might have on what is considered his stronghold just 2 years to the next election. Your take on what this Anambra election meant for Peter Obi and the obedient movement?
Well, politically for Peter Obi, his home base seems to have been, brought down by, the governing All Progressive Grand Alliance. And of course, even that's at the state level, and then the governing All Progressives Congress at the national level. Labour Party is not so strong in this election. And of course, you would have heard of PDP too. And so it's a very huge challenge for Obi in his home state. Politically, these are very troublesome signals for someone who has a national towering stature like Obi. And so for this to happen, a whole lot of people start questioning his national political credentials. But in this situation now that we are in, what would make Peter Obi get this kind of figures? Well, there were several allegations of vote buying and some other things to which he alluded to. But nonetheless, you can see that the gap that Professor Chukwuma Soludo gave was actually very, very huge. So assuming there was these allegations, wouldn't they have been able to catch up at all? Because the distance is so much, and it has just solidified APGA's base. And one thing that has happened too is also to say that Professor Soludo seems to be receiving his reward for attacking Peter Obi over the years, because you can see that in Peter Obi's polling unit, it was actually APC that won, defeating the Labour Party candidate. And then because of the mixed signals too that Obi was sending to his supporters, people were not sure whether Obi is still in Labour Party or he's now in ADC. That confused a whole lot of voters. But that's not to say that what has happened is new. I mean, we've seen that in 1999 and 2003, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo, while he was president then, was not popular at his home base. But of course, nationally, he was well accepted. So these things really happen. But I mean, ahead of 2027 election, Peter Obi has to create a very clear signal to his supporters, both at the state and national level, as to where he actually belongs. And then, of course, for the APC that's mocking Obi, well, as far as politics is concerned in Anambra State, I can tell you that Labour Party has still done pretty well, despite the fact that they didn't come second, considering the challenges that they face in terms of the leadership crisis in the party. And if you look at it generally, you will see that it's about, wooing people, and the messaging from the APC candidate and Labour Party candidate wasn't very, very strong compared to the messaging by Governor Soludo. So you see that within the nexus of the elections in Anambra, actually, the opposition politicians perform woefully. And so that's why you would have heard Governor Chukwuma Soludo saying that, look, he had opponents, but not opposition. And that's a reality. There was really no opposition in this election.
But, I mean, Sumner, with due respect to, I don't think there were even, those ones were even worthy to be called opponents in the first place. That was why there was a complete trouncing. I mean, who were the opponents? What was the caliber of the people that were vying against the Governor Soludo? It's not like the last election that, you had other people, formidable people there. So, not even great opponents as such. And as regards the Labour Party, some I like to say things the way they are. The Labour Party performed woefully. They didn't try at all. The gap was so much. They performed very woefully. Mogalu didn't come up to the party. But what do you expect? Mogalu used to be in the APC. It was not the same person that was in the APC that was in charge of National Inland Waterways until recently, before he crossed to the Labour Party. So they just used the Labour Party as a special purpose vehicle in Anambra State. So they performed very woefully. I want us to talk about, the cash elements to this election, the contest for the highest bidder, cash versus cash. Who also said it was a cash and carry exercise, pretty much after the popular supermarket in Lagos, cash and carry exercise. And by extension, we can also talk about the PDP Damagung situation, that is happening now, and the party primaries that the PDP had recently.
All right, Rufai, I mean, when you talk about this cash for vote or vote buying or vote trading, as you may like to put it, it's all about the political parties. Most of the political parties actually gave money. So let it not just be that it was only APGA that gave money allegedly and all of that, as some of these opposition politicians are saying. The thing is that our democracy needs to be built on trust with the people. And so if politicians don't earn the trust of the people, they will have to resort to self-help. And resorting to self-help in this situation is actually trying to buy people's conscience, because there were some places where people were even complaining that somebody got 20,000, another person got 1,000. Why will it happen like that? But in all, we need to take a critical look at the state of our democracy and see how we can go ahead from here. But let's look at the positive sides of this election. 22%, turnout compared to 20%, in the last Anambra election before this one. It's very good outing, at least within the standards of Anambra State governorship elections previously. So what we'll do is to try to see how more people can come out. If more people come out, it will become much more easier. Then we also have the issues of, the trust that people need to have in the electoral system. INEC performed very well. The template set by Professor Mahmood was already in place before Professor Amupiton came on board. And so you can see that he built on it, and that has really helped. But in all, I want us to take a look at the politics. When you see Professor Chukwuma Soludo over the years, before the 2023 election and after that, hitting Peter Obi always and always. He always knew that Peter Obi is his only formidable point when it comes to Anambra politics. And aligning with the APC has helped his political capital. And so you would have seen that all that he did to support President Tinubu is not in vain. The presidency has now supported him against the presidency's own party. And so this is the way politics goes. But the outcome of this election is not unusual. In the build-up to elections before the general elections, you see that the governing parties always, in one way or the other, allow opposition political parties, especially in their strongholds, to win elections so that they will give a feeling that going ahead into the major general election, that the elections will be okay. And then only when you now go into the major election, there'll be a problem like it happened in 2023. Don't forget the build-up to 2023, most of the elections were free and fair until it now got to the general election and a whole lot of confusion. As for the issues of the PDP, yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult situation ahead for the party as it begins to face these issues of faction or no faction. But the reality on ground is that INEC, as we have learned even as at this morning, continues to recognize Umar Damagum as the national chairman of the PDP. And in the face of two judgments, two court orders that have come from a court of concurrent jurisdiction, INEC is at liberty to choose which one to or which one not to. But INEC has consistently said that there's a Supreme Court judgment that actually says that as long as it has to do with the internal affairs of political parties, INEC should not interfere. And that is the direction they seem to be going. So, as it stands, the PDP National Convention would go ahead on Saturday, irrespective of what's happening. Yes, the minority will always have their say, and it's good to actually know that PDP is not in a state of good health. Okay. That's why the likes of Wike and all of that are saying what they need to say. And they have the liberty to say that because they've been pushed aside. That's what they claim. Shouldn't they cry?
Okay, Sumner, isn't it celebrating something that is not great, where you said that at least this time we had 22% turnout? You're comparing it to the last election where we had 20% turnout, but you forget that there was heavy insecurity in that last election, that military had to even do clearance operation leading up to the election day. So is it not appalling to think that, things are a lot better when you compare with the insecurity we had then?
Yes, you have a very strong point then, but look at the figures that have come out here. I mean, Professor Chukwuma Soludo won about 112,000 the other time, and this time around over 400 and something thousand. Yeah, you see that there's some form of confidence that people have in the electoral system that they've been able to come out to some extent. And then, of course, the security services have done very well to ensure that, there's a level playing ground in terms of reducing insecurity. And whether I like it or not, you can also give kudos to the governor too, because if he didn't perform very well, maybe there could have also been these issues of insecurity that would have made maybe people to refuse to go to the polling units. But the thing is that it can be much better. In a state where you have millions of voters and you just have thousands just trickling to the polling unit, it's a problem. We need to really look at the state of health of our democracy, especially in the states, and see how we can work to get people out ahead of the next general election.
Okay, all right, very quickly, we have just a minute to wrap up, Sumner. First question is the state of our opposition. I talked about that earlier, and I looked at not just the APC, but also the PDP. The PDP came sixth with just 1,401 votes at that election. They're supposed to be the main opposition party, at least, nationally. Is the PDP still, or should they still be considered as the main opposition party? And then the other parties that didn't really put up a fight as they were to APGA. Then the second one would be, I'd like your very brief comment on Professor Josh Amopitan's performance, because he had said that we can judge him based on this, or begin to judge him based on these Anambra elections. What's your judgment today?
Well, on the first question, the PDP is still the main opposition, because if you want to judge them, you'll have to judge them based on the performance and the number of seats that they still have at the National Assembly, irrespective of the defection and all of that. Apart from the APC, there's no party that comes second other than the PDP. Well, the PDP seems to be losing, touch with reality, with voters and all of that. So it's left to them to decide to actually rearrange themselves, or you could have other political parties like the ADC and others that are yet to be registered, which may soon be registered, coming to actually eat into them. The dying days of PDP are here before us, and we are seeing it. So it's left for the party's leaders to see whether they are going to bury it or they will revive it. Then on the issues that you have talked about, Josh Amopitan, I think he shouldn't take even up to 10% glory in this because everything was already set for him before he came on board. As far as political analysts are concerned, his thumbprint, his fingerprint can't really be seen in this election. It's only going to be in subsequent elections where he would have to be the chief architect of the decision making from the start till the end that we can be able to say, okay, yes, he's done this. But I saw Professor Soludo saluting him and thanking him and said, look, INEC has come of age. This is a golden age and all of that. Well, any winning governor will say that.
No, the president
but
also
what we need
him.
is
the president also saluted him.
Well, what do you expect the president to say? I mean, he needs to say all the good words to actually ginger the Electoral Commission because Joash Amopitan is his appointee. So this looks good for now, but let's not just set these targets on this. Don't forget, when Buhari came on board, that was the same thing that we saw in 2016. But gradually, as we were getting into 2019, the electoral process was eroded. The integrity of the electoral process was eroding, and then, of course, we now had that server problem in the 2019 general election. And then when the 2019 looked like it was much better, all of a sudden, by 2023, we just saw something that no one ever expected.
That's right.
Yes, we have made some achievements and growth, but nonetheless, Professor Joash Amopitan should please sit very tight to his chair and look at all that has been done, learn from it, and then build a system that's workable ahead of the future. But I can tell you, this is not time to smile.
Final words. It certainly is not. This is the beginning of a longer journey, dare I say. And of course, we know that when we're looking at this, just the sheer scale and magnitude of a national election, many dynamics differ. But Sumner, Sambo, we thank you so much for your time and your analysis today. A lot of information and thought-provoking points for us to chew on throughout the day.